Hello everyone, it's the first Sunday in November and of course it's time for a new prompt in the Facebook group, the Mixed Media Emporium. Now the prompt for this month is holiday preparations. A lot of us participate in holiday festivities during December and some of you in January, and I just thought this would be an ideal opportunity for some of us to try and get ahead of the game. This does not have to be Christmas related. I know that many of you don't celebrate Christmas, so please feel free to adapt this to any festivities and celebrations that you participate in. But the challenge for this week is to create some greetings cards. Now I've got here a stack of craft cardstock. This is 300 GSM craft paper. I love using this. I just think, you know, especially if I'm using going for a vintage theme, I just think the craft cardstock is ideal. So I'm just going to grab my paper scorer and score down the middle. I'm using my Hoogie board, paper scorer, Hoogie, Hougie, Hoogie board. I don't know whether you can see that. There are several different brands of these things, and some of you have a scoring option on your paper trimmers as well. Now you can see that my paper measures 29.5 centimetres. I could either score it at 15 or 14.5. It makes no difference whatsoever. Either way, I'm going to be left with some paper that I will need to trim off. So I've made my score and I'm going to fold my paper this way. Really important. Don't be tempted to fold it in the other direction. You want to fold your paper this way, and this will just stop the spine from cracking. So I've got 3 card bases, and you can see that the edge needs trimming off on all of these. I'm not going to do it yet because I have no idea what size card I'm going to want to end up with. So, you know, I can apply my embellishments over the top and then I can trim it down at the end. Now, I don't want to spend a huge amount of time on making my Christmas cards. I completely admire some of the mixed media artists that create the most beautifully detailed Christmas cards. I just never have time to do that, and I just want something quick and easy that is effective that I can put together. So I am going to be using some sheet music as the base of the focal image for my cards. Now I've got these from a couple of different sources. Some of you will remember that I received a book in the Your Creative Studio boxes a couple of months ago, and it's just got some wonderful Christmas paper in here. So I pulled a couple of these out. I've also got one that I had from AliExpress as well. It was stapled across the top. I've just removed those, and in this one here there are a couple of Christmas designs as well. So we've got jingle bells, and there's a couple of others. Hark the Herald Angels Sing, I think it was. Oh Holy Night. And so I've pulled a few of these out from those 2 paper packs. So I've got these. They're a really nice size. I don't want anything too big. I've also got some papers that I've photocopied from a book that I had from my violin playing days. This is Building Better Strings and Orchestras, 3rd edition. I had this in my teens when I used to play the violin, and it's all in miniature. This is just absolutely fantastic. I used this last year as well. I've removed the Christmas pages and I've photocopied them onto cream cardstock. So we've got Christmas Overture, Christmas March. We've got I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day, Christmas Around the World, Deck the Halls, you know, yada, yada, yada. Now, I know that some of you are probably thinking I photocopied this. What about copyright? I am using this for my own personal use. If you are selling things, you would not be able to photocopy pages like this unless it was out of the copyright date. But as I said, I'm not selling these. I'm using these for my own personal use. So, you know, it is my right to be able to use these as I so wish. So, you know, either buy something like this. I think this was £1 from AliExpress, maybe 80 odd pence, including delivery. Or if you've got any vintage music papers in your stash, use those instead. Now I've trimmed the edge of some of these, well, all of these papers. Let me show you this one here. So for instance, this is how this one started off. And I've just trimmed the excess around the edges away. And the reason for that is that I've got a whole pack of 6x6 papers that just wouldn't have fit unless I trimmed them. You can't see any of the background because of course these are 6 inches themselves. So I've trimmed all of the excess away so that I can use these to mount my beautiful music paper on. I do want to say as well that I know that not many of you are going to have exactly the same supplies as me. If you've got your own music books, then you can shrink them to size. The Graphics Fairy, I know I keep mentioning the Graphics Fairy a lot recently. She does have some vintage music downloads as well, so I'll leave the link to that in the description box below. But I just think these are going to be absolutely beautiful to mount my papers on. These are double-sided. I'm not going to recommend these. I got these from, it was either eBay or Amazon, and they're shiny. I waited ages for these. They came from Australia and they just weren't what I expected at all. They've got a very shiny surface. It feels almost plasticky, but I'm not going to waste them. They were really inexpensive, but I just think they're going to look absolutely beautiful. And of course you can see that they're not Christmas designs at all, but they just work really, really well. I just absolutely love this side of the paper here. I'm just inking around the edges of my paper in iced spruce distress oxide. I think the grey will work really well. I've decided I'm going to use this side of the paper here. You don't need Christmas themed paper packs to make your Christmas cards. Use whatever you have. Have a look through your paper stash and see what you've got that you could improvise with. I think that's going to be absolutely beautiful. Now I'm going to use a glue stick to glue this down to start off with. I'm just going to go around the edges with my glue like this. I'm also going to add a tiny bit of 3-in-1 as well. I'm just going to pop a little bit of 3-in-1. This will mean that it's not going anywhere. It's going to stand the test of time. Most greetings cards do get thrown in the bin anyway, but you know, it's always nice to think that somebody will keep them, especially when they're homemade. And I'm just going to stick this down on top. So let me just stand up to do this and line that up. I love that paper in the background. It just goes so well with the vintage music paper. I'm just going to use a bone folder. Here we go, just to make sure that that's stuck down really nicely. Wiggle that into place if it's a bit off. And I'm just going to trim the excess away on the right hand side. That looks absolutely beautiful. And so I want to add it to my craft cardstock. Now I've got this strip left over. And I just think that this would look really nice if I had a tiny amount of the yellow just on the left-hand side, which just, you know, makes it stand out just a whole lot more, just adds some vibrancy. I really like that. I don't want to waste this paper, so I'm just going to trim a small amount off and just glue it onto the side. I've just trimmed off a really small amount, and the easiest way to glue it down is to just add a tiny amount of glue. Here we go, mine's spilling out all over the place now, just to the back of the card like this. Let's just run that down with my finger. And where's the strip of yellow? Let's have a look. Let's see how we can do this. And just stick that down on the edge like this. And that's just a really nice finishing touch and an added pop of colour. I'm just going to add some more of the iced spruce distress oxide around the edge just to frame it and just to get rid of the white edge, and then I can stick it down to my craft cardstock. And that's the first card done. I love how that looks. Beautiful. Before I add my card to the cardstock, I've got a piece of manila braille paper here, and I'm just going to glue it onto there like that. It just adds another layer, another dimension, works really well with the craft cardstock, and just adds so much to it. I think the more layers that you add to your cards, the better they look. So I'm just going to glue this down. Here's the finished card, and I just think the touches of grey and yellow just make that so beautiful. Really pleased with that one there. So let's do another. For my next card, I want to use this piece of paper here, God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen. Because of the red in this paper, I've pulled out these two sheets, and of course again they're patterned on the other side. I think that's too busy if I use these. This one I don't like at all. That one's quite nice, but I think I prefer the plain sides. So I just need to play around with these and figure out which one is going to work best. You see, that's lovely. I really like that. Do I like this one here better? You see, that looks really nice as well. Which one do I like best? This one here, I think, is calling to me. So I think I'm going to stick it down to this one and again trim around the edges. First of all, I want to ink around the edges, and this time I'm going to use Distress Ink in frayed burlap, just because the colours of the frayed burlap work better with this particular one here. So we'll ink around the edges here just to grunge it up a bit. You can always do it on a piece of deli paper here. I keep saying to you as well that if you don't have deli paper, don't worry about it. Parchment paper or grease-proof paper will work just as well. It's just to catch the mess. So we'll just grunge this up around the edges, distress it like this. Oh, whoops-a-daisy, I've creased it, but that's okay. That just adds to the distress, grungy look. Perhaps we can add some in the centre as well. And I've added some glue stick and some of my 3-in-1 as well. So I'm just going to stick this down. I'll stand up to do that. Just line it up nicely, I think. About there, looks good, and burnish that down with my bone folder. And again, I can trim around the edges. I think that's going to look beautiful. Now, that's how that one looks. And again, just that strip that's left over from the other side just works beautifully glued down to the left hand side, because the blue picks up the blue in the top here. So I'm going to do the same thing again, and I just think that just adds another dimension to the card. I've glued the extra piece down onto the side there like that, but what I want to do with this one here is just add a piece of washi tape just to break the two up like that. So let me just tear a piece of washi tape off. I'm going to add some glue stick to this, because washi never sticks down very well, and this will make it more permanent. So there we go. And I'm just going to stick that on the side there, and it will just make it stand out better. I love how that looks. That's just gorgeous. So I just need to trim. In fact, it can be wrapped over the other side like that. It did it on its own. I love how that looks. That's beautiful. I'm just going to ink around the edges, again using frayed burlap just to disguise the white edges of the paper. And I'm going to stick it down to a piece of this manila paper again, because I just love the layers, and of course it ties in with the previous card that I've made. So I'm just going to stick that down like that. We'll do that again with a bit of glue stick just around the edges, just to make sure that the edges are firmly stuck down. There we go, a bit in the middle, and I'll apply, whoops, we've got a blobby there, a bit of 3-in-1 as well, just to make sure that it's permanent and it's not going anywhere. So peel that up and stick this down to the piece of manila paper. Stand up to do this so that I get it square, and use a bone folder to make sure that that's firmly glued down. And then I can take this off to my paper trimmer again and just trim neatly around the edges. Before I stick this down to my craft base, I'm going to use some Memento ink in Espresso Truffle just to darken the border. So we'll go around this like so. What a difference inking makes. Just really frames everything and just makes it look so much nicer. You can glue this one down to the craft background or card base as well. And again, I'm just going to use a mixture of glue stick and 3-in-1 to do that. Now, before I go and take this off to the paper trimmer, I just wanted to show you why I leave the card backgrounds so large. You can see that these are completely different sizes. I mean, the one that I've done here is much wider and shorter. So now I can just go and trim that off to the exact size. It just gives you much more wiggle room. Let's take one of the plain pieces of music paper and see if we can tie it in with the other two and make this interesting as well. So I'm taking some of the Distress ink in frayed burlap. I'm just going to ink around the edges just to grunge this up a bit. I printed this out on cream cardstock as opposed to white. You could print it out on white if you wanted to, and you know, just grunge it with the Distress ink. I'm going to go over the top as well just to make it even more vintagey. I love how that looks. There we go, that will do fine. And this time I'm going to use the blue paper here just to use to back my music paper. I like how that looks. Again, I'll just use a mixture of glue stick and 3-in-1. So using my glue stick just to make sure that I get plenty around the edges, and just using the 3-in-1 in the centre. So grab some 3-in-1 and just apply that there like that. Lift that up and stick this down to this piece of gorgeous paper. I want it in that orientation, I think. And I think the yellow will tie in with the other paper I've used as well on one of the other cards. That's beautiful. And again, I'll just go and trim around the edges. Trimmed around the edges, and that's how that looks. So again, I'm just going to glue it down to the same piece of Braille manila paper and attach it to my card base. Now, as gorgeous as this is, it just looks a bit plain in comparison to the other two cards that I've got here. So I've decided to print something out on my Phomemo printer. This is the Phomemo thermal printer. Many of you have seen me review this in the past. It's just brilliant for card making. So I'll leave a link to the video showing how to do this and what the Phomemo is all about in the description box below. But for those of you that don't have one of those, I've got a stag stencil here. This is one of the Creative Expressions mini stencils. Let me just try and put it on something a bit darker so that you can see what it looks like. You could just stencil a stag or two onto your card front, but I'm going to use this. I printed this out on the clear paper that Phomemo sent me, and I'm just going to stick that down. Let me just try and get it central about there, like that. I love how that looks. That's just gorgeous, and just added just another element of detail to my card. I really love this card with the Phomemo printout. That's just so cute, but I did want to show you how it would look if I used the stencil that I showed you earlier. So I've just stamped using Distress Oxide in iced spruce. You can see how I've done that. And it just looks absolutely wonderful. And then I just added a tiny weeny bit of Distress Oxide at the bottom, just to ground the reindeer as well. So two different ideas, both absolutely beautiful. So this is my interpretation of the card making challenge for the holiday preparation prompt for this month. I hope it's given you some ideas as to how you can interpret it. Don't forget to go and check out Kylie's video as well, because I'm sure that she'll have more ideas to share as well. For anybody that wants to follow along with the prompt this month, I'll leave the link to the Facebook group, the Mixed Media Emporium, in the description box below. So please do feel free to come along and join us. But if you have enjoyed my video today, as always, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up. Do let me know what you think in the comments below. And thanks for watching. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye for now.